Greetings viewers, Eric the Car Guy here, also known as ETCG1 on this channel. Why? The special hat. Here on ETCG1 we talk about stuff. We don't do repair videos, so if you're looking for repair videos, there will be a link in the description to my Eric the Car Guy channel and you can go there and watch all the repair videos you'd like. Other than that, if you want to stick around and join us in the conversation, I welcome you to do so. And today's conversation is a return to a previous conversation about driving old cars. Yes. Driving old cars. Behind me, my 1979 Ford Fairmont. Some of you may be asking, Eric, where's the hubcaps? And my response to that would be, well, you can't have the hubcaps on when you take it to the racetrack. And then some of you might be saying, Eric, why are you taking it to the racetrack? It's 85 horsepower, 3.3 liter straight six. Good point. And the reason is we're doing a baseline. Why are we doing that? Well, we're doing it based on your recommendations. I like you viewers. I like your input. And you had a really good idea about taking this to the track and finding out what it does now in a stock form before I actually start putting my hands in it and start tweaking it and doing stuff to it. I spent a couple of weeks getting it ready, did a lot of brake work, fixed that brake line that was an issue. Probably going to end up redoing that. I didn't really like how that turned out. It's working fine. It's ugly. And honestly, it was my first one that I actually bent myself outside of trying to do it with my hands. I tried to use those Eastwood pliers and I need more practice. I didn't do a good job of it. But that's how it is in this business. I mean, experience does play a huge factor, and many of you have said that in other videos. But it's a return to the driving old cars video. And I put out the video and I was really happy. You know, driving my old car, my 1979 Ford Fairmont. But a lot of the responses to that video, and there's still responses being made to this date, people coming up and saying, yeah, I really love driving my 92 Civic. And I'm just thinking, that's not an old car. I got kids older than that. But then it dawns on me that it's 2014 as I make this video. And yes, that does make that an old car. I never really made that distinction, and it brings up an interesting point about the discussion, which is it's generational. Old is a matter of perspective. For me, what I meant when I said driving old cars, I meant driving something older that's carbureted, maybe even has points ignition, doesn't have electronic ignition. The 79 does have electronic ignition. Ooh. My original thought behind the video is I was talking about older mechanical systems in vehicles that made them into what they were. And because they were older mechanical systems, there were things that you could tweak. There were things that you could mess around with. There was a certain art to maintaining and working on a vehicle like that. And it's from a different time when a lot of men, dads, what have you, that's what they did. They went out on the weekend and, you know, if the car was acting up or something like that, they took the carburetor off and went down in the workshop and rebuilt the carburetor to put it back on. Now, granted, there were still plenty of people out there that had no idea what they were doing, but just in general, there was a lot more, it seemed to be self-reliance in that time period than there is now. Now there's somebody to do that for you. There's somebody you can hire out to do that. Yeah, sure, there was always people you could do that with. I'm not saying that wasn't the case. It just seems that there was more of an interest in things of a mechanical nature. There was more do-it-yourselfers in that time. It seemed, at least it seemed to me. I'm very biased because I grew up in a couple of different households. My parents were divorced, but one of my grandfathers was a fabricator and also quite a good mechanic himself, World War II veteran, and yeah, he was always working on stuff and doing things, working on the family cars like that. My father, also a mechanic, working on stuff. So I grew up around this type of thing, and salvage yards and just around this kind of stuff my whole life. You know, there was always a workshop, there was always tools around, there was always that kind of thing, and as a result, well, you have what you see here today. But when I made that original video, that's kind of what I was talking about. When you get into a car like that, that's basically full of mechanical functions, and that's the way it works, and that's the way it operates. It has a certain feeling to it. Now, I'm not trying to take anything away from your 92 Civic, because as an old 92 Civic, it may not be as reliable as it was on the day it was born, certainly. I would argue in many ways a 92 Civic was put together much better than some of these older vehicles. You just look at the overspray on this thing. this 1979, and you can see that it was not necessarily put together with tender love and care. Or I really shouldn't say that, because there was human hands that were involved. A lot more human hands than there is today. There's robots pretty much build vehicles today. There are people that assemble them and keep an eye on things, but for the most part, the robots are doing the paint. They're doing just about every critical function, and the humans are just there to make sure that it all gets put together correctly. They assemble it to a certain extent, but all the welding, all that stuff is not human anymore. It's a machine that comes in and does it in a very precise way and uses a precise amount of materials, and therefore you get a product that's very consistent, which is good for auto manufacturers because they don't want an inconsistent product going out. With an inconsistent product that goes out the door, any number of things could happen once it leaves. And that's the kind of thing I was talking about. That type of vehicle that was assembled more by hands, that is more mechanical in nature, it's temperamental. You know, this has a choke. You know, when I go to start it, I have to hold my tongue just right to get it to start, and that type of thing. And if I want to, I can go and rebuild the carburetor, and I just might do that at some point. I think that would make a good video. It's not like some of the newer vehicles. I'm calling them newer vehicles. I'm talking about fuel injected and mass produced, more reliable vehicles than these things were. And it makes a difference. It makes a difference in how they were made. It makes a difference in how they behave and how they react, and how you drive them, and do you trust them on those long trips? And when you go on those long trips, do you have, like I have, a box of stuff in the trunk of extra coolant, extra transmission fluid, extra oil, and a Leatherman in the glove box in case I get into trouble? I don't want to carry an entire toolbox with me, but for the most part, I think I can get myself out of trouble with the turn of a right screw, or something of that nature, or just filing something down that needs to be filed, but knowing how it works and having that kind of intimacy with it. That's what I was talking about with my driving old car experience. And once again, I'm not trying to take away from those people that were talking about cars in the 90s that feel old to them, because they're not. I mean, and many of you, those vehicles are older than you, and I get it. And that's how you see it, and that's why I said it's generational. And in many ways, a lot of you have never had experience with cars like this, with carburetors and that kind of thing. And I'm glad to have this, because I'm able to bring to you that experience of having something that's older, that's mechanical, that has its quirks, its idiosyncrasies, its temperament. It's kind of cool. It's kind of cool. So I welcome your comments on this one. And I hope I've made myself a little more clear in what I was speaking of when I was talking about driving old cars. I still love driving Oliver. I've been driving the heck out of it now that the weather's gotten warmer. And we've really gotten to know each other quite well. And I know what works and what doesn't, and I've done quite a bit of work on it up to this point, and I hope to do more. I just really enjoy it. I mean, I hope you're enjoying the videos, because you're going to get a bunch of them, because I've just been working on this thing and loving every single minute of it. So my old car, which actually I don't even consider to be that old. My first car was a 72 Galaxy, and that was relatively old to me. But I like going back even farther than that, to cars in the 40s and 50s and 60s. Those cars are equally awesome, at least in my eyes. They don't make them like they used to, and in many ways that's a good thing. Because although those cars were way cool and represented a great time in American history, they weren't very safe. I mean, you're talking about big block engines, high horsepower vehicles with no power brakes, four-wheel drum brakes. So you had all kinds of power, but no way to control it. Not to mention the handling on those old cars sucked. I mean, you're talking about something very large and very heavy, bias ply tires. We've come a long way. We have come a long way. Those cars were cool, no doubt, but they aren't nearly. You could be impaled by the steering wheels on those things, and the windshields were not the same, and the seat belts, not if people even wore them. Yeah, and in some ways we've lost a little bit of the romance of that, riding in the back of pickup trucks, that type of thing. But hey, we call it progress, I suppose. But that's what I wanted to do. I just wanted to bring this discussion back to the fore and clarify my point a little bit more, and wish me luck at the track. It should be fun. I know I'm not going to get to the other side very fast, but there'll be a video. Don't worry. Anyway, I am Eric the Car Guy. as I said, also known as ETCG1 on this channel. But if you have automotive questions, I would ask that you head over to ericthecarguy.com, where there is a welcome video to tell you about all the wonderful features we have there to help you with automotive issues should you have them. And if you want to see the next ETCG1 video, look for me next Monday. If you wish to connect with me socially, I can be found on Google+, Facebook, and Twitter. And I close each of my videos with be safe, have fun, and of course, stay dirty. I will see you next time.